Hi, my name's Sean, and I work with Wolf Brewing Company, a microbrewery on Old Victoria Road. And I have the best job in the world because I get to talk about beer. Most of the time I'm talking about Wolf beer, but today I'm going to talk about something else. I'm going to talk about Nanaimo's rich and delicious brewing history. Let's start with some numbers. So it might surprise you to know that BC is going through a bit of a craft beer revolution. Sales of BC craft beer have doubled just in the past 4 years, and they continue to grow. And all over the province, new craft breweries are opening, hiring, and brewing. At last count, there were over 100. It might also surprise you to know that at the turn of the 20th century, there are more than 40 breweries operating in BC. You might think that's not that many. But those breweries supported a population of just 200,000. So at the peak of brewing in BC, there was one brewery for every 5,000 people. And that's a lot of beer. In Nanaimo, there were 7 breweries between 1865 and 1921. And it's also reported that at one time, we had more drinking establishments per capita than anywhere in Canada. So it shouldn't surprise you to know that Nanaimo has a secret nickname of the Hub, Tub, and Pub City. So the first brewery in Nanaimo was the Millstream Brewery on Mill Street. It failed after a couple of years and was followed by the Salt Spring Brewery. It also failed. That brings us to the Nanaimo Brewing Company and a fellow named John Marr, who you've probably never heard of. John Marr was an Austrian baker who came to Nanaimo in the 1870s, and he did a lot. He was an alderman, and he sat on several boards, including the Nanaimo Hospital and the Nanaimo Gas Company. He also built Nanaimo's famous Opera House, which to this day shares a wall with the Dorchester Hotel on Front Street. In 1879, John bought up the old Salt Spring Brewery, tore it down to the foundation, and built the Nanaimo Brewing Company, where he produced about 80 gallons of beer every day. In addition to beer, John ran a bottling company and soda works at the location. And for more than a decade, he turned a tidy little profit. Here's the thing, though. John was never a brewer. His real legacy was bottling. He was among the first breweries in Canada to bottle beer and became quite known for his bottling techniques. Brewers came from all over Canada and America to learn bottling from him. And in that way, Nanaimo was pretty instrumental in Canadian brewing history. The Red Lion Brewery was started in 1885 by Thomas Priest and John James. In 1889, Max Heffel was hired on as brewmaster. He left in 1891 to work under Henry Rifle at Union Brewing, and by 1892, the Red Lion had fallen into disrepair. Later that year, the Red Lion was absorbed by Marr's Brewing Company. And also in 85, Henry Roosevelt started Lansdowne Brewery near Bowen Park. He was joined by John Cawthorn in 1886. Lansdowne wasn't Nanaimo's largest brewery, but it was definitely the longest running. A Swiss man named August Hassenfratz took it over in 1890, moved it over to Comox Road, and ran it until it closed in 1921. While working at Lansdowne Brewing, Henry took in a lodger named Peter Weigel. Peter was a brewer who moved to Nanaimo with his wife Matilda. We don't know much about Peter, except he started the Empire Brewing Company in 1891 and ran it until it burned down in 1900. Union Brewing Company built their brewery in January of 1891. It featured a 900-gallon copper kettle and a $12,000 refrigeration plant. With former mayor John Pawson as president and Henry and Conrad Rifle brewing and selling the beer, they brewed year-round, producing 2,000 gallons of lager, porter, and steam beer every day. They brewed their first beer, a lager, on October 31st of 1891. Just 1 year later, they bought out the successful Nanaimo Brewing Company, who had just bought out the Red Lion. The Union Building remained until the 50s, until they tore it down and built City Hall on top. Stones from the building are reported to rest in the cairn at Pioneer Plaza. So Henry Roosevelt was a miner who started Lansdowne, and he lived with Peter Weigel, who started Empire. The Millstream, Salt Spring, and Nanaimo breweries were all the same place. Max Heffel worked at the Red Lion and Union, and then John Marr bought the Red Lion, sold the Nanaimo Brewery and the Red Lion to Union in that same year. Got it? Good. While this was happening, something other than beer was brewing in the background. The Temperance Act had been passed in 1864, which provided communities with the power to pass prohibition by a majority vote, and groups like the Women's Christian Temperance Union were calling for an end to the consumption of liquor. It was believed and fiercely advocated by these temperance groups that the consumption of liquor always led to deviant behavior. A corrupt heart, the wrath of God, wickedness, envy, idiocy, delirium tremens, imprisonment, and bad company, and my favorite, stripes. Basically, drinking would turn you into the Cat in the Hat. In 1918, the federal government enacted prohibition by order in council. This would mark the beginning of the end for Nanaimo's breweries. First Union closed in 1918, then Lansdowne in 1921. By then, prohibition in the U.S. was in full swing. By 1922, nobody was brewing beer in Nanaimo anymore. After Union closed, Henry Rifle went up to Cumberland and brewed with the Pilsner Brewing Company. He later became one of BC's most infamous bootleggers, smuggling more than $10 million worth of beer to the U.S. Empire Brewery was stripped and sold to pay debtors. Lansdowne Brewing became a warehouse for beer shipped to Nanaimo. And nobody brewed a drop until 1996, when a few folks from Nanaimo started the short-lived Bastion City breweries. They were followed by Fat Cat Breweries, Longwood Brew Pub, and Wolf Brewing Company. In 2015, Longwood opened a second location, a brewery on Boxwood. White Cells Brewing is geared up to launch this fall in the old foundry. At this year's Great Canadian Beer Festival, more than 60 breweries from BC and beyond came to showcase their beer. After more than 60 years of silence, craft brewing is more than alive and well. It's thriving. The festivals are getting bigger and bigger, and there's more beer brewing every day. I don't know about you, but I, for one, am thirsty for more. Cheers.